Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 21 of the Stone Age Gamer Podcast. My name is Chris Randazzo. I am your host this evening, as per usual. I'm back from my week hiatus, and with me, as always, tonight is the Vest Lord himself, Dean DeFalco.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris.
The bearded one, Mr. Dan Ryan.
Evening, everyone.
And our very special guest this evening, Mr. Ryan Cross from StoneAgeGamer.com.
Hello.
How's everybody doing today?
Okay.
Well, Dan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, actually. I had a good day.
Did you?
Did you?
I did. Yeah.
What was special about today?
I didn't hate my job today, which is more and more rare as the days go on. Today, I didn't want to kick a kitten. So,
Well, I guess any day where you don't want to kick a kitten is a step in the right direction.
things are looking up.
All right, well, as you've heard, we have a special guest with us tonight. So we're going to kind of work this as an interview. We're going to ask a few questions, maybe take a break, come back, ask a few more questions. We're going to skip over the whole what we've been playing thing because, we want to talk to Ryan about all sorts of things. So why don't you just kick us off by telling us who you are, what you do, and the basic philosophy behind your website. Who is Ryan Cross?
Well, I started StoneAgeGamer.com back in 2007. It's a retro video game store, basically. I mean, that's essentially what it is. We don't do anything of the past two generations. That's kind of our rule. Anything more older than two generations, that's what we try to carry. It started as this little side thing, and it's blown up into this, relatively speaking, much bigger thing than I ever expected it to be. So.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So you have there's the website, and I'm kind of unclear. Is there a brick and mortar store too, or is it just the website?
It's just the website right now. We actually moved into a retail location back in October of 2013. It's an actual retail location in downtown Salem, Ohio, but we had not opened it to the public just because that's a whole nother ball of yarn or whatever the saying is. So we're eventually going to take steps to do that. We'll probably start out slow, maybe open on Saturdays, a couple times a month, and expand from there, because obviously to open up a store, we're open longer hours than we are now. We have to have more people, more managers, and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, there's an awful lot involved in running a retail business, I can tell you that for free. All right, well, so you said you deal in retro stuff specifically. Is it just, I've poked around your website a bunch, but just in case anybody doesn't know, it's retro games. You also do some accessories, and you have all sorts of other interesting types of things on there too, like I saw like plushies and things like that. Is this all, is it new stuff? Is it old stuff? Is it as in secondhand when I mean used? Like where do you get your stuff from?
Well, our main focus is newer retro stuff, just because selling used stuff is very difficult if anyone has experience with it, because it requires a lot of time, cleaning and, taking pictures and stuff like that. We have, there's a walkthrough on our YouTube. We have tons and tons of stuff that isn't on the site because you got one joystick here. That's the only you have of that. So to sit there and clean that and take pictures and put it on the website, it's hard to justify the man hours versus the profit you'll gain from doing that. So that's what we think opening a retail store would help us clear a lot of that out. When we go to retro gaming shows, we sell a ton of that stuff, but selling it online is just too time-consuming for us to justify it in a lot of cases. Now, used games we do sell, but like used systems, we don't really sell on the site very often. We focus more on stuff like the EverDrives, the flash carts, our new BitBox game cases, and some other products that have our name on it, because those are either exclusive to us or semi-exclusive, as in there's not a lot of people that carry them. So that's where we can make the most money, really.
Now, you had mentioned the EverDrives and stuff like flash carts. I'm actually a little fuzzy on it myself. What exactly are these what are the flash carts? What do they do, and what is the intended purpose of them?
Well, flashcards basically allow you to take a game ROM, just like an emulator, put it on, the ones we sell all use SD cards, put it on an SD card, plug the SD card into the flash card, the EverDrive, put that in your system, and when you load it up, you get a list of all your games, you select it, and it plays it on the original hardware. It's not an emulator, it's the cart or the system thinks it's the original cartridge as far as it's concerned. Now, of course, how you get those ROMs, I cannot help you with. You should obtain them legally, but that's essentially what they do. A lot of collectors like them because they can keep their collection in the shelves or in their storage and just have one cartridge in their system. I'm sure there's people that aren't collectors that use them too, but that's essentially what they are. And they're not cheap because they're made. I mean, the EverDrive line is made by a guy. He makes the PCB in the Ukraine. I buy the PCB. I dress it up, make it look nice with on the cartridge shell and nice labels and all that. Can make it look like a finished product, and that's our main thing. We do sell the boards by themselves. We do sell just the cartridge by itself, but we also sell what we call a deluxe edition, which is in a case, much nicer, much more finished. We coat the shells in a vinyl coating to give them different colors depending on the cartridge and stuff like that. So that's probably our biggest seller. Well, easily it's our biggest seller is EverDrives.
So what's those actually sound remarkably awesome. I had kind of suspected that's what they were, but I purposely didn't do a ton of research just because I knew I was going to talk to you soon, so I figured I'd just ask you. Wow, that sounds kind of magnificent. What platforms do you have them for?
We got the Genesis Mega Drive. We have that's all the same cartridge, obviously. That also will work with a 32X if you have a 32X.
Wow.
It can also the Genesis one, since the Genesis was backwards compatible with the Master System, it can play Master System games on your Genesis as well. And
you don't need a power base converter or anything for that? They just kind of...
No, because the power base converter was just a pass-through. There was really no circuitry involved, inside the power base converter. It was just a pass-through. So, as far as the system's concerned, it's a Master System game. And so we also have Super Nintendo. We have two for that. We have one called the Super EverDrive and one called the SD to SNES. They're both manufactured by the same guy, but the SD to SNES was developed by a different person. It's a long story, but one's a higher-end version, one's a lower-end version. We have Nintendo 64. There's also two versions for that, a higher-end and a lower-end. The higher-end just came out. There's TurboGrafx 16 PC Engine, which is a really popular one because the games are so expensive for the system.
Right, they are. Yeah. Does that can you also do like the CD stuff with that?
No.
Oh, okay.
You can't load like CD ISOs. It's just not, the hardware just doesn't work that way. So you can use it as like the CD card, BIOS or whatever it was, but you can't use it to load CD ISOs. What else? Master System. There's actually a Master System one, specifically just for the Master System. There's a Game Gear one. Believe it or not, there's a Game Boy version, and there's probably one I'm missing. But so yeah, they're out for a few systems.
You have anything for, say, like the older stuff, like Ataris, Odysseys, things like that?
No, I asked him about that because we do have a lot of people asking. There is a flash cart for the Atari 2600. It's called the Harmony cart. I don't mind plugging someone else's thing because we don't sell it, and I have no problem promoting that. But I've never used it myself. Apparently, he said the circuitry of the old systems is so different that it would require him to redesign it from the ground up. Because a lot of the times he can just take the same base design and rewrite the software and configure a few different things and kind of redo it, but he hasn't expressed too much interest in doing any of the older systems. It would be neat, but There are some flash cards for older systems out there. I believe there's a television one that just came out. You gotta dig for them though. They're not as widely known, and a lot of them, a lot of these are made by hobbyists. So, a lot of them have a short shelf life. They make like 100. They don't make a lot of money off it. They have a day job, and they just can't justify going into a business and making this stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
How easy are these things to use? I'm just curious. Is it just plug and play, really?
It's essentially plug and play. You put the ROM on the SD, you put the SD in the thing, and it'll bring up a list just like a list of all your files, and you just select it and run.
Cool.
The game will load up.
Cool, because I'm looking at this Game Boy one, because I got 3 or 4 Game Boys all backlit, and now this would give me a reason to play them.
It is a really nice package. I was poking around on the website earlier, and I was looking at the NES one, and the vinyl coating and whatnot that you're putting on them it's a really nice package. I mean, if anybody is looking to have that, like you said, you can keep all your games, your rare, your expensive stuff up on the shelf, and then still play your games out on your system the way it was intended. I mean, the downfall of the ROM really is the controllers, the lag. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it takes you out of the I guess the environment, because you could play a Game Boy game on the computer, but it just downright doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you take that little 2-inch screen and blow it up to 50 inches, and things kind of look a little wonky.
Yeah. But they do?
A little bit, just a tad.
Okay. I should probably stop doing that.
The package itself it's really nice. Like, I was really impressed by it, because a lot of times you see flash carts and stuff, and they look cheap. They look like just this kind of knockoff product that somebody's trying to get one over on you. But this one is a really nice, professional-looking product.
Yeah, the NES one, that's the one I forgot when I was listening. There's an NES and a Famicom flash carts as well. They're two different flash carts, but the NES one specifically is really nice because it actually has save states as well, like an emulator. So for us, I mean, I don't know how you guys are, but I can't sit there like I was when I was a kid and play games. Unfortunately, I wish I could for hours on end. It's nice to be able to, with games that don't have a save ability, you can stop and start it at any point. The only other Flash EverDrive that has that ability is the Mega EverDrive, which is the high-end Genesis one. And I think the reason that is just because the hardware is capable of it. It's not that he's lazy and doesn't feel like doing it for the other ones. It's just that hardware is capable of. I assume he somehow, I don't know much how the flash cards work, but somehow saves the state of the memory itself, and he can then reinstate that exactly how it was and continue on. And not all hardware has that same abilities, but the NES one, I know my guys working will probably hear this on Monday when this goes up. They hate doing the NES one, because especially the one that has the classic color scheme, because of that black stripe on the lighter color background. Background. It does take a lot of time and effort to do. That's why the premium editions with that stripe cost a lot more, $50 more, I think. They look really nice. I love how they look, but they are a lot of work. We often get customers. Sorry if I'm rambling here a little bit, but
no, not at all.
we often get, especially early on, I would get people complaining to me how expensive these are, and telling me that how much they should be, And when I was doing these all by myself in a basement at one time in my house, and I finally got someone else to help me, and he was familiar. He was already helping me with the site. And when he first did them, he's like, now I see why you charge so much for these. This is a lot of work.
Now, you had mentioned that you had a Game Gear one. I recently acquired a Retron 5, and I was really enjoying playing the Game Boy games on the TV. Because I know, like Dean, you just said before, or Dan, about blowing stuff up from little tiny screens to big screens. I think I love that. I love it. I mean...
Well, the Retron 5 does a good job of that. So one thing I can say about that system is it looks great on modern TVs, I think.
Yeah, it definitely does. you had mentioned you had a Game Gear one, and the one thing that I really wanted to do with my Retron, what I would really just like to do in general is be able to play some of my Game Gear games on a television, because I was playing Mega Man, I mentioned on the show a few episodes back, and my Game Gear is just, the screen is so close to just shot, and it's so tough to look at. And is there any way to is there a way to utilize a flash card or something to play said games on a television screen?
No, unfortunately, I agree with you. I wish someone, because the Game Gear, although got stomped by the Game Boy, it's still the second, probably one of, especially retro portable, second most popular. So there are a ton of good games for it, but there's playing on a Game Gear, especially now because of all the cap issues that they had. It's just kind of a clunky system. It really would be nice if someone could do that. Now, maybe Hyperkin will do that with the Retron 5. All they have to really do is make some kind of adapter and sell that separately, because I don't know if you know or not, but the Retron 5 is just an emulator. It's just an Android-based emulator. So really all they need is some kind of adapter, and I'm sure they could probably make that work. It just, it'd be worth their time is probably what they're asking. Time and money is what they'd be asking themselves.
Well, I mean, they made it work for Master System via the power base converter. And if I obviously I could be mistaken, you might know more about this than I, but isn't the Game Gear just essentially the same tech as the card reading in the Master System?
Yes, as far as I know, it's almost exactly the same. The only thing different really is the Game Gear had more colors than the Master System. I know with the flash carts, the reason he made both the Master System and Game Gear flash cart is because they worked exactly the same. He just had to change the size and the pinout on it. They used the same operating system and everything, so that's how similar they are, that he really didn't have to change anything besides the board design to get them to work.
You hear that, Hyperkin? Make it happen. I want to play my Game Gear games on a television, dadgummit.
And not to plug myself too much product-wise, but I don't know if you guys saw on our website, but we do sell a product called the Power Base Mini, which is
I was just going to ask you about that.
Which is a smaller size of the Power Base, smaller size Power Base converter. Now it can't play the HuCard games; it can only play the cartridges. But that does work on the Retron 5 and obviously Genesis and Mega Drive as well. And supposedly the guy who developed it is coming out with one with FM support. It'll be more expensive, but if you're into FM, it's really nice. I honestly, I hadn't really listened to FM sound on the Master System until he told me he was coming out with this, and it's a huge difference in the sound quality. I
didn't even know that was a thing until I think it was I can't remember which game it was. On Wii Virtual Console, they were releasing Sega Master System games, and I was downloading them because they looked so. They were so colorful, and they looked so nice on my HD TV, and I was flipping through a menu option and said FM sound, and I was like, what the hell is this? And then I switched over to it. I was like, oh my god, this is because the Master System sound is awful. It's as nice as the graphics were on that system. The sound is, it's so tinny and scratchy and terrible. And I flipped over to FM sound, and I was just blown away by how different it was. I think it might have been Fantasy Zone 2. I can't remember, but that's really cool stuff. That I didn't even know it existed before then.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it existed, but I had never listened to it, and I always heard people making a big deal out of it. I'm like, come on, how much better could the sound be on an old 8-bit system? And then when he came out with this and released a video comparing the sounds of the different games, I'm like, it's night and day.
Yeah, it's even bigger than like I had just recently been listening to the differences between Famicom and NES games, and that was another one I just kind of chalked up to whatever, there's not really that big a difference. But listening to something like the Zelda 2 soundtrack and how much cleaner the notes sound on the Famicom version as opposed to the NES version, and stuff like Castlevania 2 and Castlevania 3, those sounded like a pretty big difference, but it's nothing compared to this the FM sound on the Master System. It's a huge difference. But yeah, that power base converter thing you have on your site is really cool. I was looking at that and thinking, boy, that's considerably less cumbersome than the power base converter itself. Dean and Dan, have you ever seen one of those things?
It's ridiculous.
It looks really funny attached to the Retron 5 too.
Yeah, that's been selling really well for us too. I wasn't sure, I think the guy actually approached me and said, "Hey, I have this product, and would you like to carry it?" And I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know how well a power-based converter would sell, but does it, is it because, I mean, they're not rare, they're not common, they're not rare, but they're not expensive either, usually. I mean, they seem to be all over the place on eBay from like $20 to, $100, but, I'm like, I don't know, how much is it going to cost me to make, but it's actually been it's sold really well for us so far. I've been really happy with it.
That's cool. Getting back to one of the other ones, you mentioned the Super Nintendo one, and I was curious about. I know a lot of Super NES games are notoriously difficult to emulate properly because of things like the Super FX chip. I know on my Retron 5 I was having some issues with Stunt Race FX. A couple of the menus tend to just completely bug out on me. How do let's say I downloaded a ROM for Yoshi's Island and I plugged that into the flash cart and ran it through the Super NES. Is that going to run it? Like how exactly would something like that work? Are those issues with the ROM itself, or are those issues with the emulators? And does using a flash cart to run that game through the system correct that?
Well, the problem with the SNES had a ton of special chips that they put into the games to give them enhancements, whether 3D or scaling and stuff like that. Whereas the Genesis never really did that, besides for virtual racing. There was no special chips. So the Super EverDrive and the SD to SNES, compared to the other ones, are probably the lowest compatibility percentage. It's not like they're 80% or something like that, but they're probably like 95% compatible. We'll take the lower end one, which is the Super EverDrive. It does not support any of the special chips. The only special chip it can support is the DSP-1 chip, which is in Super Mario Kart, Pilot Wings, Super Bases Loaded 2, I think, and a few other titles. Then quite a few Japanese titles as well. But the only way it can support that is taking a donor DSP-1 chip out of a game and soldering it into the board.
So what you're saying is a lot of these games had the chips in the carts, which makes it difficult to emulate back onto a actual system.
Right, except for the SD to SNES, which is the higher end version. It actually has the ability to emulate most of the chips. Unfortunately, two of the most well-known ones, the Super FX, it cannot do yet, and the SA1, which a lot of games used, it cannot do. Those are probably the two of the more powerful chips as well, and complex the chips. But basically, the SD to SNES is so powerful. I mean, I don't even know what to compare it to, but it's probably more powerful than a computer from the late 90s at least, or early 2000s. I mean, it has a really powerful chip on it. So basically what it does, whereas the Super EverDrive needs the DSP-1 chip to run DSP-1 games, the SD to SNES emulates that chip. It doesn't emulate the game, but it emulates the chip. And so it can do the DSP-1, 2, 3, 4, I think ST010, CX4, which is Mega Man, has a real-time clock, so it can support games that have real-time clock and stuff like that. But it still cannot do. I know the guy who created it is working on it, but will it ever get done? I don't know. I don't know. But the Super FX and SA1 are probably the most well-known, and they're still not emulated on the SD to SNES. The reason I just brought that one up is the DSP-1, the SA1, and the Super FX are the ones that have the most games. The other ones, some of the other chips only have one game or two games that use that chip, whereas those DSP-1, SA1, the DSP-1 is emulated, but SA1 and the Super FX are not.
Wacky.
I gotta say, I am feeling like I'm blown away right now, because to hear you say that the Genesis did not really have any special chips, I'm just wondering, was my whole childhood a lie? I thought there was blast processing.
Blast processing, bro?
And what you're telling me, Ryan, is that Sega lied to me.
Yeah, they actually did lie.
Yeah, they lied about
Those
a lot of
dirty,
stuff.
dirty corporate scum. I'm glad they're out of business. I'm happy about that.
Someone's
Bunch
a little
of
bitter.
jerks. Ugh.
It is kind of surprising, though, that Sega never really went that route besides for Virtua Racing. I mean, I guess the 32X was kind of the answer to that. We'll just give you a system that has that power of the special chip. I guess that was their idea. Obviously, we know how that went.
All the while it screams
Extremely
in
well,
pain.
yes. The only system that screams at you while you play it.
Hold on a second, because I was actually one of the people that got a 32X for Christmas at the full price, and I played the hell out of it because that's all I had. There's no way my parents were going to buy me a Saturn or a PlayStation at the time, so I had to live with the 32X. So I have a soft spot.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I played so much Afterburner on 32X because I didn't care what noise the system was making. I was playing Arcade Perfect Afterburner, and it was so good. I loved Afterburner on 32X. It was so damn good.
And now how many do you have, Chris?
I think I have 9. Yeah, I think I have 9 32Xs.
Enough to be as tall as Andre the Giant.
It's the only system I can't get rid of them. They're so deliciously absurd.
Well, and they had, I mean, it's not like you had terrible games. I mean, a lot of the games were terrible, but they had some really good games. I mean, Virtua Racing Deluxe, I mean, for the time anyway, I mean, played it now might be kind of tough, but I played the hell out of that. I played the hell out of Virtua Fighter, even though it was blockier than the arcade. It played better than the original Saturn version. I know they ended up fixing it later on, but...
Star Wars Arcade was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean... Knuckles Chaotix was okay.
I don't want to talk about that fucking game.
Yeah, me and Dean
game.
gave an attempt at that one when we did the marathon thing for the charity that we did. That was that was something else.
That
we
game
couldn't
made
really
no
figure it out.
Oh my god, it made no sense. It made zero sense. You got to stand there, and then you got to hit B, and then you got to slingshot yourself to the other side, and the other stupid game. You know what? 0 out of 10.
0 out of 10 would not recommend.
Maybe I'm being a little too kind, I guess. But like I had motocross championships, and that game is absolutely terrible. But I played a lot of that.
I think we all have that thing, right? I had a TurboGrafx 16, and I was the only person I knew for a long time that ever had a TurboGrafx 16. And I tried to tell everybody how cool Andre Ponza's kickboxing was, and it wasn't cool. But damn it, I tried. I was like, no, this game's awesome, man. You got to play it like Street Fighter. Whatever. I'm rocking Andre Ponza, man. I had no idea, like, is Andre Ponza a real person? I still don't know. I haven't bothered to look it up. But it's like, nah, this game's dope, man. You got to play Andre Ponza kickboxing. Get it.
But you had mentioned these game cases, and I saw an image of them up on the site. What exactly are these? What are they? What is the purpose of these things, and what do they do?
Well, they're game cases that you put games in, and that's the problem with game cases is they really are pretty simple. When it comes down to it, I have people that tell me they want these game cases that do all these crazy things, like store every single game possible and do it well, and for 25 cents a case, and I'm like, they're game cases. I don't know what you want me to do. I originally with the game cases, right now we have NES cases. They're basically cases that hold your NES games. Surprisingly, we have a SNES Super Famicom case that holds both SNES and Super Famicom games. We're also currently having an N64 case engineered. And the reason I originally made these cases wasn't because I was like, man, game cases, that's where the money's at.
Corner the market on game cases, Gary. We got to make them.
That's what the kids are talking about. The kids on the street, they got to get those game cases.
Well, how it ended up coming about was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Universal game cases that really were the only retro game cases available.
I am familiar with those. Yeah.
They're absolutely terrible in my opinion.
Yeah, I
mean,
do not like them.
then they were borderline junk when we started using them. And I know that sounds bad because we do use them, but we modify them. We modify them to be better for the flash cards that still use them. But I just got tired of dealing with them. So I'm like, can I get my own game case made? Well, so I started looking into how expensive this will be, and to get an injection molded case done, most of the places I went to was just the upfront cost was just astronomical for engineering and molds and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, can I find something cheaper than injection molding? And I found the vacuum forming, which is similar to the old Disney VHS.
I was just gonna say it looks like the old Disney's, my copy of Fantasia for VHS tapes.
I will say this
clamshells?
before people freak out and say those are junk. These are higher quality than those. They have a thicker gauge plastic, so.
Were those junk? I always thought they looked cool.
Well, a lot of people say they're easily damaged and stuff, but they were also handled by kids, and I don't know. This is just customer complaints because customers want something specifically that they have in their mind sometimes, and the upfront costs for making one of these these vacuum form cases was not even close. I mean, I could get for engineering and molds, I could get 5 different cases made, or 4 or 5 different cases made for just one injection molded case. So I'm like, okay, that's a bit more realistic than the injection molded case. So, but the problem was, to justify it still, I couldn't just use them for EverDrives. I sell a lot of EverDrives, but I don't sell, 5,000 of a specific EverDrive a year, especially the deluxe editions, which is what they'd be used for. So I'm like, I kind of have to sell these. Plus, I figured customers are going to ask for these cases. If they see them, there's going to be people like, I want that case, but I want it for my other games. So I decided to come up with a brand, which was Bitbox, and so that's kind of the story of that. And so we had the NES one made first because the NES EverDrive was coming out at that time, and they don't fit in the universal game case without modification. So that's why we started first, and then we went to SNES and Super Famicom because we sell a lot of those, and now we're trying to do the ones that never actually originally came with game cases, especially unlike the Genesis. So eventually we're going to work our way through all the EverDrives over time. So we're going to have game cases for anything that has an EverDrive. We'll have game cases for, but game cases as a whole aren't that big of a moneymaker. They take up a ton of room, and honestly, I would, if anyone was thinking about getting into the game case game because they think they're going to make a ton of money, I suggest looking elsewhere for something more profitable. But that's just me, and that, I guess you could call me biased because I don't want competition at the same time.
Now, where do you get the cover art for these kinds of things from? Because there is definitely something to be said about uniformity and having all of your games, obviously finding a copy of Super Mario World complete in the box is considerably more difficult than finding a copy of Super Mario World loose. So being able to have uniformity in all of your game cases across the board, but where do you find this cover art from?
Well, there's a website called The Cover Project, and it's just a forum where people have scanned and designed cover art specifically for the Universal Game Case because it was the only one available at the time. But for other systems like Sega CD, they might do DVD case cover art because the Sega CD cases were brittle. So people might use DVD cases now to store them and stuff like that. So basically what I did was, I originally downloaded all the art I gave them credit all along the way. I didn't just say, haha, even though it's copyrighted material, I didn't say, haha, I'm not going to give these guys any credit for this. I gave them credit all along the way, but I upscaled it to fit my cases because my cases weren't the exact same size. But eventually what I did was I put up a bounty and said, hey, I want cover art made specifically for these cases so it fits better. It's not stretched or anything like that. And I'll give you store credit. $1.50 each cover art you make, store credit. And only one guy came forward the first time. So, I mean, he did like 700 and something conversions for me. So he ended up getting like,
Yikes.
over $1,000 in store credit. But the second time with the SNES, I did the same thing. But this time I had way more people interested. I guess because they figured, okay, this guy isn't joking. He's serious, and so I had not every game is done. It's only stuff that's available on the Cover Project, and there's a lot of NES games, but not a lot of SNES. About like 2/3 of the library or something. So, basically we offer a service. We don't make any money off of it, but you can select if you want prints, and then you get a link and you go there and it has all the prints we have available and you select which ones you want and we print them out for you. And it's a pain in the butt for us, to be honest with you, but printing isn't fun stuff, but it helps sell game cases, because a lot of people just don't have the time or don't want to put the effort into doing it themselves, which I completely understand.
Wacky. Well, they're pretty nice looking. Now, on your site, I saw Wisdom Tree stuff. Do you have some sort of connection with Wisdom Tree, or?
Yeah, I mean, the Wisdom Tree thing's interesting because I was looking to acquire low-tier licenses. So I was looking around to see, like, who owned some of these, like, licenses, and I don't know how Wisdom Tree came into my mind, but so I type them into Google, and they still exist. They're still a company. I'm like, how is this possible that this company is still around? So I go to their website.
Yeah, their website looks like it's from the 80s.
Yes, yeah, it does. But
dude, it's amazing. You can still buy like new copies of their. Didn't they do new printings or something of some of their games or some wacky crap like that?
Yeah, a homebrew company or a company that does homebrewing, I think, acquired a license to Super 3D Noah's Ark and re-released it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because I have the original one, the weird pass-through one.
Right. But anyway, so I contacted them, and I'm like, I'm interested in doing some licensed products. And I wasn't sure. I mean, Wisdom Tree is known for their crappy Christian games. I mean, that's what they're known for. They're not known for good games at all. So obviously this is completely ironic, I guess, hipster kind of, purposes. I don't know. But so I went to them and I asked them straight up. I'm like, how much would it cost me to buy Wisdom Tree? Because I'm like, I would buy if it was low enough.
Hashtag YOLO.
Yeah, if it was low enough, I would buy Wisdom Tree just to say I own Wisdom Tree.
That's a bold move. Like, so your company's a joke. And
How
I've
much would
got
it cost
20,
to buy your shitty company?
and I've got $20 just sitting around. You interested? Because come on now.
Well, the lady who owns it turned me down. Said she's not interested in selling it. I don't know, but
well, it's because she's making games for the Lord.
So I said, well, how much? I want to make some T-shirts, and I would like to obviously license it. And she's like, okay. And that's basically what happened, and it was one of the worst business decisions I made in the last 2 or 3 years because I thought I overestimated people who would like to wear things ironically, I guess, and not because they actually love the game. So yeah, I got them made. I picked the wackiest designs, Bible Buffet and Sunday Fun Day and stuff like that. And
yeah, because the cover art to Exodus is just kind of
yeah. Anything that was anything that was cartoony that could like translate well to a shirt. And so I actually acquired the license last year and didn't actually get around to doing it. I only had the license for a year, and So I was like the 11th hour, 12th hour. It was the day before the license expired. I had to make a decision because I already paid for the royalties, and I was like, I don't really feel like spending this money right now. But I did anyway, and I wish I had. I wish I would have just ate the money, because I have hundreds and hundreds of these shirts sitting there. I mean, they sell occasionally. Most of them people buy with their like rewards points and stuff like that. But even when we took them to a trade show, people were walking up and looking at them like, some people thought it was funny, but some people were like, why would anyone wear this? And I'm like,
Well, at first when I got on there, I was like, oh, video game shirts. And I was like, wait, what does that say? No, no.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm eyeing up the Super 3D Noah's Ark shirt. It's just so deliciously absurd.
I wear them all the time, and I've never had anybody actually recognize like the game and say, "Oh, I had that game when I was a kid." But I've had people. One guy came up. I was wearing the Bible Buffet shirt and said, "Is that a restaurant?" And,
no, but it should be. It should be.
I had a friend who I gave the Super 3D's Noah's Ark shirt to, and he actually went to a pawn shop and was wearing it. And the guy did recognize the logo. But yeah, I haven't had too many people actually recognize them. But I've actually been accused of promoting Christianity. I've had people email me. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm promoting crappy games is what I'm doing. I'm not promoting. I mean, most of these don't even have, besides the word Bible, what in the shirt Bible Buffet relates to Christianity? It's ice cream cone, a hot dog, and a pizza.
That's the Lord's work right there.
That's I believe those were the first 3 courses of the Last Supper, if I'm not mistaken. If I've read the latest translation, I believe.
You don't remember the first person shooter part of the Bible where Noah throws apples at donkeys?
You mean that wasn't only in the Doom movie, that happened in the Bible too?
Yeah, it happened in the Bible too. They did it in Passion of the Christ, actually.
Okay.
It's the second station of the cross, is where it is.
Oh, okay, great. God.
Oh God.
I kind of want you to send some of these shirts to like starving children in Ethiopia. You know how like they always get like the shitty, this team didn't win the Super Bowl, kids, why are you wearing that shirt? I really I hope in a couple years I'm like flipping through a National Geographic or something. It's like, oh damn, a Bible Buffet shirt. Awesome.
Yeah, it was interesting. The company that actually owned Wisdom Tree was Color Dreams, who made the unlicensed games, and I actually went all the way back to them to see, because trying to find out who owned this stuff. And apparently they are a security camera company now. They actually still own apparently they own the rights to Wisdom Tree. They just the lady just pays them royalties for why, I don't know, but that's how it works apparently. And I thought that was all interesting, because when I contacted them, some of the original programmers still worked it's not called Color Dreams anymore, it's called something else, but still worked at the security camera company. So that was interesting.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What do you do, Jim? Well, I used to make knockoff games illegally. Now I make security cameras. Same company.
Knockoff Bible games. We made knockoff illegal games for the Lord.
Well, and Color Dreams was a Chinese company. I don't think they actually cared about promoting Christianity. I think they thought they saw an opening in the market that they would have monopoly over, I guess.
And they did.
Wow.
They had a monopoly.
All right, so we're going to take a very quick break. This has been ludicrously informative, and I hope as interesting to other people as it has been to me. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to ask you some much less important questions, and then we're going to call it a night. So stick around. right, everybody. That was a fun break, and we really took it, I swear.
Oh my god, I did so much. I made a sandwich. I ate some potato chips.
All right, so we've
Right.
got a few less serious and technical questions to ask. So I'm just going to start off with the first one. John asks, what is your personal most frustrating game/level you've ever played?
Wow, man, I remember throwing my controller and yelling and screaming at a lot of games. I mean, doing the whole, I'm done with this game, it's cheating, walk away, and then 2 minutes later you're sitting back down playing it. But I can't really think of, I mean, besides the obvious ones, you know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and stuff like that, you know.
And there it
Hit the Ninja
is.
Turtles bell.
There's the Ninja Turtles bell. All right, let's see. Marco asks, better food amplifier, bacon or cheese?
What the fuck?
I'd probably say cheese. I don't know.
Dude, what kind of question is that?
These
Well,
are the
I-
important questions. Inquiring minds, I'm kidding you not, somebody asked this question. It's a real question for this man right here, for Ryan. That was the question.
No, I think he's right though. I think the chemical makeup of the product itself has more elasticity, therefore amplifying the sound.
Amplifying the stop.
I do agree with the cheese, though, just because, all right, look, bacon is phenomenal, but there's so many cheeses. Like, there's Swiss, there's cheddar, there's mozzarella, there's Gruyere.
Next
there's all
question.
sorts of fancy cheeses.
Next question. Keep going.
All right, what is your favorite Mega Man game and power-up?
Not a big fan of Mega Man, to be honest with you. I know that's blasphemy.
Podcast
Ow,
over.
wow.
We're
Yeah,
turning it off.
I
Everything's
brought my
shutting down.
my store is probably going out of business here now. But
Come shop at the Stone Age Gamer. We hate Mega Man.
yeah, probably one of the few people that'll ever say that. So I can't really. I mean, man, I can't really even answer that question. These are hard questions. I didn't think they'd be this hard.
All right, Karen asks, if your collection was on fire, what would you save first?
Oh, here we go again. I don't have a collection. I kind of do, but when I started Soyange Gamer, there went my collection. I mean, that was part of starting the business, was my collection. That's something so unfortunately I don't have, I mean, if you want to count the whole store as a collection, then I'm not saving any of the games. I'm saving the EverDrives, the more expensive stuff. But, I mean, if the question is like my favorite game of all time or something like that, that's impossible to answer. But I would probably have to say the game I played the most of as a kid would be Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It's not really something you would save in a fire, but because you can easily get it. But
I'm diving into the fire to save this $4 game.
I've got to get my copy of Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt. You don't understand.
All right, follow-up question to that one. Best song in Sonic the Hedgehog 2?
Sonic the Hedgehog 2 best song? Oh man, I don't even know. I could give you the best song from Sonic the Hedgehog 1. I love Starlight Zone.
Ah, good answer.
But I can't. I don't know if I can actually think of. Man, here's the problem with owning a retro game store. I started a retro game store to play retro games, and what ended up happening was I don't ever play retro games because I never have time to play retro games anymore. So a lot of this stuff, to me, unfortunately, maybe people will call me a poser now, but it's very faded. Like I can remember like the specific memories of like what wowed me, when I first saw it and stuff like that. But like specific songs and that kind of stuff, that's really hard to even remember anymore, to be honest with you.
The correct answer is the Chemical Plant Zone, by the way.
Chemical Plant Zone.
I don't know about that, man. Mystic Cave was pretty good.
All right. Yeah.
I'm just
It's
saying.
pretty sad
I'm
too,
just
because I
saying.
beat that game so many times and I couldn't even tell you the song. I can't even remember. If I played it again, it would probably all. But I haven't played through that game in forever, to be honest with you.
Dean or Dan, do either of you have any questions?
I asked my question of, do you have Battletoads? And the answer was no, so I'm good.
Dan? Well,
No, he's
all right, then.
he's here. He's just ignoring all of us. I guess him and his beard ran away.
All right, let's see. Dirk Hardpeck asks, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
I think 100 duck-sized horses. I think that question's actually pretty easy.
Bro, that's a lot of duck-sized horses, though, and they got hooves and stuff.
I don't know.
Get overwhelmed by 100 duck-sized horses.
I mean, there's 100 of those things.
And they got hooves, and they're gonna kick and stuff.
I had a really long discussion about this question when it was asked of me, because I went with the horse-sized duck because it's one thing. I figure if it's one-on-one, I might be able to come out on top. I mean, it's a duck. It's got a big bill, but it doesn't have hooves and stuff like that. It's got feathers. I might be able to take a horse-sized duck. A goose, maybe not. Those things are vicious. But 100 duck-sized horses. I mean, I'm trying to picture 100 hamburgers. 100 hamburgers? That's a lot of hamburgers. That's a lot of mass. And if they're all coming at me at once, and they're horses, I don't know, man. Shit's dangerous.
It always kind of reminded me of the age-old question, which probably now is not very politically correct. How many kindergartners do you think you could fight before they would overcome? You would be overcome by them.
I haven't heard that one. That's a new one for me.
I haven't heard that one either, but that's a good question.
I mean, because there would have to be a point where they would eventually overcome you, but I mean, what would that be, like
A bunch
hundreds?
of 5-year-olds just trying to kick the shit out of you.
What did you do to them? How did this fight start?
Told them
I don't
Barney
know,
sucks.
I had a Barney reference.
Hey, Dan, glad you could join us again, you asshole.
Hey, look, not for nothing. I was being the man of the family, and the cat found a bug, and I killed it.
The cat?
That made no sense.
The cat found the bug, and it interrupted my podcast, so the cat is now dead.
Jeez.
I told you I was being the man of the house.
So you killed your family pet. Good job.
Yeah, whatever.
God.
No, I was going to say I have 5-year-olds, and my 5-year-olds are kind of badass. I don't know that any of you guys could take them, like both of them at once.
I've met your daughters. They scare me.
They should.
All right, here I got another question for you, and it's just kind of from me, and it's something that we've discussed on the show, and I'm curious what your opinion is. Capcom or Konami?
I would have to say Konami, but that goes back to my earlier Mega Man thing. So, I mean, I think that's only
True. Yeah. If you don't like Mega Man, Capcom's lost a whole lot of points there.
Yeah. What is right? Because I mean, you talk retro games, obviously all the big names that everybody knows. What is the game that you love that you're relatively sure nobody else likes?
Oh man. Well, I thought it was TNC Surf Designs. Until I found a video the other day, and I posted on my Facebook, and there's a few people that actually said that was the best skateboarding game for the NES. They thought, and I agree.
I agree 100%.
It's one of the best LJN games, maybe after Maximum Carnage, and that's pretty sad. I mean, I'm not saying TNC Surf Designs is an awesome game, but in the surfing part, if you don't know how to play it, it's terrible. But the video I posted on Facebook was an actual instruction guide of how to play the surfing part correctly, because a lot of people don't know how to do that.
I sure as hell don't.
Yeah, it's worth checking out because a lot of people, they're just sitting there pushing buttons and don't know what the heck. There actually is a method to doing it, and the instruction book is at fault in the end. The instructions didn't actually explain it very clearly to you, so no one really knew how to play it. You had to kind of just figure it out on your own. So yeah, I would say, I played a lot of TNC Surf Design. It's a very arcadey game. It's just trying to beat your score, get farther, but I don't know if a lot of people like that game or not.
I remember thinking it was pretty cool. I mean, it's got a surfing gorilla.
Sold surfing gorillas. I'll take 20.
I even have Thrillist Surfari.
Oh God!
I don't think I ever played that one.
Don't.
No.
You didn't miss much.
The name's the best part.
All kind of downhill from there.
I want to go on a Surfari.
have we hit all of our questions?
Actually, I have one last one, and you can choose not to answer this. You are a businessman, after all. Is there anything you have sold that you felt really bad selling to someone? Like, this sucks, but you want it, so here you go.
That is a good question. I'm trying to think if it's ever happened. I mean, some stuff I don't get why people will pay as much money for it as they will. But other than that, here's a good example of me feeling guilty where really I shouldn't have been. I once had a guy come on Facebook and say, "Hey, I really want one of those EverDrive 64s." And I'm like, "All right." He's like, "I'm going to sell my car so I can buy one."
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice. That's a commitment.
And I'm like, I felt like saying to him, "Man, if you need to sell your car to get this, then maybe, you got more important things than buying an EverDrive 64.
Or maybe you should buy a new car.
Right.
That's got to be one cheap car, man. You got to sell the whole thing to buy an EverDrive.
So, I mean, I guess that would be, we're not fooling anybody. We're not going around, selling them something that, that it's not or anything like that. But sometimes you do run into people that it's obvious that they probably shouldn't be buying this expensive item. They're trying to spread it out over 3 credit cards or, something like that just so they can afford it. Sometimes I maybe a little too much empathy sets in and I'm like, man, I really wish I could tell this guy not to buy this, but, but
At the end of the day, you got bills to pay, so.
And some people might take a lot of offense to that as well, I remember we were at a trade show a few years ago, and it was the end of the show, and this guy wanted a Turbo Express, and we just kept going through credit card after credit card, getting declined.
Oh.
And finally one works, and I'm just like, man, should he be buying this?
Well, he's got more debt than he can imagine, but he can play TurboGrafx games on the toilet.
You're damn right. I don't know. See, I remember working in video game retail and people coming in and being like, "Hey, do you have any copies of Superman for Nintendo 64?" And my answer was always, "Yep. Here you go, $5."
I've had customers buy $260 SD-DES NES, get it, and say, "What is this?" I don't even know what I've had.
I thought these were jelly beans.
They don't even know what they ordered. I don't know what they thought it was, but they're perplexed by what they just ordered, and I'm just like, $260 is not chump change. It's not like an impulse buy, you're at the counter and buy some gum or something. We've had people send them back because it wasn't what they thought it was. And
I'm far too wealthy to read instruction manuals. Tell me what I just paid for.
I would just email him back a link to the website and the product description.
Isn't this an SD card that goes in your camera?
Here you go. I just got a Nikon Coolpix.
Can I put this in there? Does that work with it?
I'll tell you, the only time I've actually ever argued with the customer, because obviously the customer is always right? So you don't argue with the customer. But this one guy, one time, he bought an EverDrive. He gets it. He says, "My EverDrive's all corroded," and I'm like, "All corroded?" I'm like, "Can you please send a picture? Because how is that possible? Because these are gold plated and whatever." And he sends a picture, and I'm like, "That doesn't look corroded to me. It looks like every other EverDrive we have sitting on the shelf." He's like, "Well, the gold pins aren't shiny." Now, I don't know a lot about making PCBs, so I contact the creator and ask him about it. He said, well, he uses a specific gold plating process. I forget the name, some technical name, but it's the best gold plating process you can get, but it leaves a matte finish, not a shiny gold finish. So I tell the guy this, and he's arguing with me that I'm wrong. So eventually I get another email from him saying, "See, I got some polish and I polished the corrosion off, and now it's all shiny. Well, what he did was he polished the gold right off, and all it left was the nickel underneath. Is that it left it all shiny, and so he's arguing with me back and forth, saying he's ready, saying he talked to some of his computer friends and they agree with him. So I take some of his stuff and I post it anonymously on a message board, only to see, because I want to make sure I'm right in this, because I'm totally confused on why this guy is so adamant. You know, it's a case where someone seems so adamant about something, you start to question yourself, you know, on whether it's true or not. And they're like, what the hell did this guy do? He just polished the gold right off. So I send him some of the clips from this message board, and eventually he, you know, starts swearing at me and tells me, he tries to flip it around on me, because now I think he knows he was wrong, but he doesn't want to admit it. So he's like, well, you should know more about the products you sell and all this kind of stuff. And it was the only time I actually really argued with the customer. And at the end, he's, you know, reporting me to the Better Business Bureau and all this kind of stuff, because this guy was just, you know, being a jerk. It really probably just felt foolish.
Wait. So let me sum this up. Man tells you the gold plating's not shiny. You tell him that it's not supposed to be shiny and not to touch it. So he touches it anyway and then says it's your fault because you told him not to touch it?
He said I should have known more about my products. I mean, sorry, I don't know, you know, some electro whatever gold plating process that went into.
It's blast processing gold plating, obviously.
Not obviously.
Went into it, you know. Occasionally we also get customers that are like, my EverDrive's used because I see marks on the pins. Well, we do test them quite a few times, so that technically they are used in a way. They're not going to be brand new out of the package. We have to go through, and I mean, I'm sure the manufacturer tests them multiple times, then we test multiple times. So they're gonna, since it's a matte finish, you know, it's gonna leave marks. It's not bad. It's just that's how it is. It's supposedly the best finish you can get, but. Yeah, that's why I kind of stepped back from the day-to-day stuff. That's why I hired a general manager, because, I mean, we have a lot of great customers that, you know, write nice emails, and we try to do the best customer service we can, but I own the business. And when someone tells me, like, I'm a shyster or, you know, stuff like that, it's hard not to take it personal. Whereas if they tell my general manager we're shysters, I can just tell my general manager, respond to them, be nice, you know, but it's hard to tell yourself that when someone's basically insulting you. You know what I mean? It's hard to do that. So, and you're dealing with customers sometimes, you know, I guess that's with any job, dealing with customers, really.
Well, we don't think you're a shyster. We think you're a stand-up gentleman.
Yes, we.
Sad you're not a shyster. I was sold a false bill of goods. Chris called me and he was like, so I got this shyster who wants to sponsor the podcast. I'm in.
Did you ever explain how that all came about on the podcast at all? How you emailed me, Chris, and said, yeah, we kind of accidentally took your name.
Yeah, so all right, so I was on this Facebook group. I don't think I have ever actually gone through the whole story. I was on this Facebook group. I am a classic gamer, and I posted about my podcast on there because I'm pretty proud of it. I think it's a pretty fun show. And the first response was from somebody saying, "Oh, I love your flashcards, but I haven't listened to your show yet." And I'm like, "Huh? I don't have any flashcards." So Google search later. Oh, look at that. StoneAgeGamer.com. So that's a thing. So I spoke to Dean, and we were just like, I don't know. It seemed to be, you know, two different animals kind of a thing. So let's just let it ride. And I decided, just out of just generally feeling weird about things, I was like, look, I don't want these guys to think we're stealing their thunder or anything. So I sent out an email saying, look, we kind of made a podcast and did a whole bunch of episodes and didn't really know you were there. So what should we do? And then we, after a couple of very important meetings with some lawyers who wrote things in crayon, and very high-powered pricey lawyers back and forth, some legal mumbo jumbo later, we decided to join forces, and it's worked out pretty well for us so far. I mean, I think our viewership's up a whole bunch. We got our name out to a whole bunch more people, and
well, it's good that your podcast was actually good, because I listened to it before I responded to you, and I'm like, if this is crap, I'll probably tell them stop using the name. But I'm
That's
like, well,
good. I mean,
this is actually pretty good. So I'm like basically what I told you, using the name wasn't that big of a deal to me, but it was if you ever decided to sell advertising or sell products with my name on it, because we are related. Even though you're a podcast and I'm a retail store, you're still a retro gaming podcast, so it can cause confusion with
definitely.
some people. And obviously it did, because some people were messaging you saying, "Oh, I love your store or your flashcards or whatever." So that's the only problem I would have had with it. But I'm like, well, if they want to keep the name, I'm not. I wanted to make it clear when I emailed you, I'm not here to control what you guys say, unless you're saying Stone Age Gamer is a terrible store, don't go there.
The worst. Oh my god.
just terrible. Just listen to this podcast about how they treat their customers. They don't know a thing about what they sell. Terrible.
They don't know anything about gold plating.
I mean, I called them yesterday and I said I was gonna rip my skin off, and they told me not to, and I did it anyway. And I was like, why didn't you tell me not to do it? So.
Why didn't you fly out to Jersey and stop me?
Exactly. Oh god. So mad.
Yeah, so that's why I decided to write you a funny email back, because I wasn't that upset about it or anything. And obviously you didn't do it on purpose, so and you did the right thing and came to me about it. If I would have found out about it, I probably would have had to email you, not necessarily had a lawyer send anything, but just say, "Hey, I see your podcast, I like it, you're using my name," and basically the same thing probably would end up happening anyway. So
well, I mean, we were going to go with the first name for the podcast, Microsoft, but apparently that's a thing.
Yeah, someone was telling me that was taken, so I don't know.
Well, all right, I guess Stone Age Gamer it is, and
my general manager saw the email, and we were talking about it, and I'm like, I don't know if that's bad for us that they'd never heard of us or what, because we've been around for 5 years. Granted, we don't sell a lot of used games. I mean, we sell a lot of used games, but systems and stuff, and we're kind of more of a modern retro store, but so I was a little insulted that you hadn't heard of us, but I got over that.
It did sound vaguely familiar when Dean told me the name in the first place, like Stone Age Gamer. That can't be. Well, I'm sure he did his research. That was fine.
Totally did my research. By waking up in the morning being like, that's a good name. I think we'll start recording tonight. That's the name.
But yeah, like I said in the email, I wasn't interested in controlling what you guys had to say, because I don't want this to be, even though I guess you could kind of consider that we talked a lot about the products I have and stuff tonight. I'm not interested in you guys sitting here saying, yeah, Stone Age Gamer has this new thing in, and Stone Age Gamer this, and Stone Age Gamer that, because who would listen to that? That wouldn't be interesting at all.
No.
But
But as far as today's show is concerned, I mean, that was interesting to me. Like, I was asking those questions just because I'm genuinely fascinated, and that's what's cool about the site, is that it's you've got cool stuff that appeals to our audience, and that's why I was so happy the way this worked out. Because I mean, when you sent that first email back, I was really nervous about sending the email. I was like, oh man, we're just starting to pick up a little bit of steam. I had just printed business cards that said Stone Age Gamer on it. I was like, oh god, I'm in so much trouble, and it all just kind of panned out so well, and it seems to work out pretty well, because we talk about a lot of the things that people who would shop on your site are interested in. I mean,
right.
I mean, I want that Super 3D Noah's Ark shirt. So.
Well, if you guys ever do video podcasts, you can get that stuff for free. If you're wearing it on the video, you could be shills for us if you want.
Done.
We'll sell our souls. Where do we have to sign? Well, we've all multi-tapped our souls a few times already, so you're gonna have to wait in line at the end of the day.
All right, well, we should probably call it a night. This has been going on for a good long while, but it was a fascinating episode. Thank you very much, Ryan, for joining us. Ryan, I hear you run some sort of website you might want to plug.
This isn't a porn podcast, so I can't plug that one, but I will plug StoneAgeGamer.com.
We just posted on GeekLife.com another Lost in Time article. I did a focus on one of my favorite Atari games, Midnight Magic, which is a super fun, kind of basic but super awesome pinball game from way back in the day. You can hear why I love it so much and why, unfortunately, it is lost in time, because I don't think anybody's re-releasing that thing on anything anytime soon. But yes, that's up, and I'll probably have another Inside the Vault coming up for you sometime in the next week or so.
Well, sweet deal. Is it my turn, Chris?
No.
Go for it, Dean. Oh, Dan, do you have something to plug?
Yes, I would actually like to plug our porno website, Stone Age Banger.
That's it. That's the title for the podcast.
The finest in caveman fetish porn. Like Wisdom Tree, we've got that shit covered.
I can't. I'm done. I can't. We're good. Podcast over. Just send it, Chris. I'm not plugging shit.
Apparently, the cavemen have already plugged it all. Jesus.
You really expect me to follow that up?
If you like this podcast, which, how could you not? It's a fantastic show. Make sure you subscribe to it on iTunes. While you're there, why don't you subscribe to the Paper Cuts podcast, our weekly comic book show, and also give a shout to the Geek Philosophers, which, from what I hear, word round the campfire, will be returning soon with a slightly altered format, but just as awesome. You can check us out on our website, geeklife.com. From that site, you can download the shows right there. You don't even have to go through iTunes, because really, that program's terrible. So, you know, you can kind of avoid that step and just go through the website. You can leave us a comment. You can rate, review, all that good stuff. Find us on Facebook. Find us on Twitter. Find us on Instagram. LO. Are we on Tinder? Probably not. We might have a Snapchat. Send us your names. We'll send you cool pictures of us. That'll be fun. You can find us on Tumblr. Basically any social media thing you want. G33KLIFE. If you have any questions for us, you can drop us a line at geeklifesite@gmail.com. And yeah, I think that covers it.
We're going to call it a night. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thanks again, Ryan, for joining us on the show. And we'll see y'all next week.
Did you just say you had a glass of butter? Because that's what I heard.
What's it to you?
I'm impressed.
A delicious glass of margarine. Yes.
How many sticks goes into a glass of butter?
Depends on the glass. I mean, really, I just using like a... I got nothing.
Oh, man.
I can't keep up this facade.